Doflamingo is often considered to be one of, if not the greatest villain in One Piece. From his iconic design, his cruel and narcissistic nature, his amazing speech at Marineford, to his absolutely tragic backstory, there are just many things to like when it comes to Doflamingo. And I think that Doflamingo is a lot deeper than people realize, and also quite misunderstood. Beneath his evil and cruel nature is a broken man who was wounded and traumatized by the horrors of the world, affecting his ambitions and his entire concept about love and power. So this is going to be a deep dive analysis into the sick and twisted psychology of Doflamingo. When looking into the character of Doflamingo, the things that define him are his ability to control and his obsession with power. He believes that he deserves to be at the top of the world, in control of everything, and that power is what is needed to become valuable. Every action he takes is in relation to his philosophy about how power and control is what is needed for the world to belong to you. This ideology begins from his backstory when he was a child. Doflamingo was born into the Donquixote family, one of the 19 royal families that live in the Holy Land of Marizua. Because he was a celestial dragon, Doflamingo had everything. He had power, status, and wealth. He believed that he was a god who could get everything he wanted simply because he was lucky enough to be born a celestial dragon. He developed a god complex and saw himself as superior to ordinary humans who lived beneath them. But everything changed when his father decided to leave the Holy Land and to instead move his family to live amongst the ordinary humans. They lost their social status and power after leaving Marizua, and this shift confused Doflamingo. Because of his superiority complex, he was confused on why their father decided to throw everything away for the sake of living with humans that they deemed to be inferior to them. But because of how bad the celestial dragons treated ordinary humans, they responded badly by torturing Doflamingo and his family. That is when Doflamingo really began to experience the world beneath him, and all that he gained from leaving the Holy Land was only suffering, pain, starvation, trauma, and loss. All of this changed Doflamingo's whole view of the entire world and how it operated. He was born as a celestial dragon who lived on top of the entire world. He was taught that ordinary humans are inferior and that they should always prostrate before him and do anything he says. He never needed to know the feeling of hunger or even pain because he was always well fed and had people to protect him. He was pretty much living in heaven. But after descending to the lower islands on Earth, he experienced hell. The same rules and environment that the celestial dragons live by in the Holy Land did not work when living amongst the ordinary humans. All the suffering and torture that Doflamingo went through caused him to want to crave and acquire the power that he lost. He swore to never be powerless again because he has experienced both heaven and hell in his childhood. And the tragic thing about this is that the system that the world runs on is what is to blame. You can't really fault Doflamingo for not understanding why people were not prostrating before him or not submitting to him, because that is the lifestyle that he was used to when he lived in the Holy Land. So it is understandable why a child who was spoiled all his life and had everything will still want to maintain his status even after Marizua. And it makes sense why the ordinary humans would want to take out their revenge on Dolphy and his family because of how much pain and suffering that the celestial dragons have put them and their loved ones through for so many years. But all of this ties back to the system that this world of One Piece operates. The world government created the system ever since the Void Century and has divided the world into two categories: those who have power and those who do not. Those with power live in the Holy Land and are treated as gods, whereas the humans who live below are seen as inferior. Doflamingo has experienced both lives. He thought his privileges and life of luxury was inherent to him because of him being born a celestial dragon, but then he realized that those privileges were in fact dependent on his position and not directly inherent to him. And from the trauma and psychological damage that he experienced for the first time in his life, his whole mindset became twisted and started to become more obsessed with power. Instead of trying to take down the system, he instead wants to acquire the power he lost and to control the system. This explains why he killed his own father, brought his head back to the Holy Land, and pleaded for his lost status as a world noble. But again, he was rejected by the world nobles and was forced to leave the Holy Land. After being rejected, Doflamingo instead tries to gain as much power as he can in the lower world and try to become the ruler of the world below Marizua. Because he is afraid of becoming powerless. His trauma of being powerless before humans continued to haunt him even as an adult, making him even more obsessed with obtaining power. This also leads into his speech that he said at Marineford about the meaning of justice. What makes this speech so iconic is the fact that Doflamingo is not wrong about the fact that power is what determines what true justice is. Because the world governments defeated the ancient kingdom during the Void Century, they created the system that everyone is now living in. They have determined that they are true justice, and they see piracy as an act of injustice. They make the rules because of their power. This speech was said by Doflamingo because of his previous experiences of losing everything after losing his power and status as a celestial dragon. Alongside being obsessed with power, he became obsessed with control. And we have seen in the series how manipulative and how controlling Doflamingo can be. He loves to control people he deems weaker than him, to show to everyone and even to convince himself why he deserves to stand on top of the world. He literally stole the entire kingdom of Dressrosa from King Riku and framed him as a tyrant by literally forcing him to kill his own civilians. He manipulated everyone to make himself the hero and the king of Dressrosa to acquire even more power. After becoming the king, he created a whole system in Dressrosa where the losers in the Colosseum would spend the rest of their lives as toys, forced to work for the Donquixote family, and no one will be able to remember them as toys. Even looking at his devil fruit power, the Ito Ito no Mi is the perfect devil fruit for a character like Doflamingo. The devil fruit gives him the ability to create strings, which he can use to literally control and manipulate people like his own puppets. He named one of his techniques the 16 Holy Bullets, after the same amount of bullets that the celestial dragons used to shoot 2 children, which ties back to his backstory and how traumatic his experience was with regular humans. He even wanted to have control over criminal organizations and the underworld, where he was involved with human auctions, selling products on the black market like the smile fruits to conquer even the underworld. He formed an alliance with Kaido, one of the 4 emperors of the sea, to boost up his status so that one day he would overthrow even the 4 emperors themselves. Power and control mean everything to Doflamingo. He uses both these things to rise to the top and will control people in order to attain even more power. Because he feels that he is above everyone, he feels that he deserves to trample over anyone and everyone to get back the power that he lost when he was a child. And he shows this same mindset to his subordinates. He would allow people to join him and represent his flag if they can prove themselves useful to him. But if he finds them to be weak or showing any signs of powerlessness, he will discard them with no hesitation, because he despises those who are weak and powerless, since they remind him of his old self back when he lost everything. Powerlessness is the biggest psychological wound to Doflamingo, because having a lack of power is what took away everything from him. It led to his mom dying, it led to him killing his own father, and it led to Rosinante leaving him to become a marine. That is why he surrounds himself with strong and capable fighters who are loyal to him and will do everything they can to make sure that Doflamingo will stand at the top. And with Doflamingo's relationship with the Donquixote family, this is where we start to see more layers to his character. The Donquixote family were formed by him, and although Doflamingo is extremely evil and cruel, he also cares a lot about his crew. And they were the ones who became his new family after Dofi lost his biological family after leaving the Holy Land. And what makes Dofi care about them so much is the fact that they are similar to him. The members of the Donquixote family were either rejected by society or they lost everything with nowhere else to go. So Doflamingo can actually understand their pain because he too was rejected by not just the Holy Land but also the world below, and thus gives them a new place where they belong. That explains their unwavering loyalty to him and their need to make sure that he becomes the king of the pirates. And going back to Dofi as a child, that was also when he met Treble, Diamante, Virgo and Pika for the first time. Treble was the one who gave Doflamingo the power needed to control the world. Treble played a huge part in Dofi's development and his road of conquest. After losing everything, Doflamingo had nothing but hatred and ambition in his heart. And Treble reinforced his idea of being the one who deserves to rule by giving him his devil fruit. Instead of trying to help Doflamingo by getting rid of the hatred that was consuming him, Treble instead pushes him further into the darkness and tells him to use that hatred as a form of power. And as a child who experienced the worst type of pain and suffering, Dofi was extremely vulnerable with an unstable mind, making it easier for Treble to manipulate him. Although Doflamingo does care deeply for his new family, the type of love he gives them is more of a conditional love than an unconditional love. The relationship is based on loyalty and even manipulation. The reason for this type of relationship is because Doflamingo was born as a celestial dragon, and he grew up around people always feigning obedience to him. And after leaving the Holy Land, he never made any genuine friendships with the other kids his age, because he saw them as inferior to him, and they hated him because he was a celestial dragon. So Doflamingo never knew how to form healthy connections with other people because of his upbringing, whereas a crew like the Straw Hats have a more genuine and loving relationship amongst one another. Yes, they do swear their loyalty towards Luffy, but it's not based on control or fear, unlike Doflamingo. If a member of Doflamingo's family is useful, he has no problem keeping them in his family. But if they disappoint him or even betray him, he will go as far as to kill them. We saw examples of this when he came to Bellamy, who really looked up to Doflamingo. Doffy noticed this and used it to his advantage. But once Bellamy disgraced his flag after losing to Luffy and Jaya, Doflamingo punished him harshly and cut ties with him. Then in Dressrosa, he gives Bellamy another chance, but then tells Dillinger to execute him once he realized that Bellamy wasn't cut out to be an officer in the family. And Bellamy was a lifelong fan of Doflamingo, and he just used him and discarded him like he was nothing. And the same even applied to his own brother Rosinante and Trafalgar Law, who both betrayed him. We see how he exploited Baby Five's naivety in that she always follows orders from people who need her, because of how much he suffered from her backstory. So on the surface, Doflamingo does care about his family, because they replaced the old family that he lost. But beneath the surface, he sees them as tools that he needs in order to gain more power. On the topic with his brother Rosinante, I think Doflamingo's dynamic with him is so well written and really delves into how the same traumatic experiences can branch off into two completely opposite outcomes. Rosinante also experienced both heaven and hell as a child. He also suffered major psychological damage from all of the torture that he received from the ordinary humans. But unlike Doflamingo, who felt that power was necessary to dominate the world he thought was cruel, Rosinante came to the conclusion that even though the world is cruel, you should try and become compassionate to those who have less power than you. That explains his decision to join the Marines, where he can protect the weak from the system that runs the entire world. So both brothers experienced the same pain and suffering, but they both came up with completely opposite conclusions on how they view the world. This is further expanded upon with their influence on Trafalgar Law. Law was extremely important when it came to the disputes between Doflamingo and Rosinante. And just like Doflamingo, Law also lost everything he had. He lost his parents, his sister and his friends from his hometown because they were infected with the white lead disease. Even though the disease itself was not contagious, everyone from Law's hometown was rejected and they were left behind to be executed by neighbouring countries. This made Law grow up to hate the world and how the world operated. It was the world government that hid the truth about the amber lead ore being toxic because they cared more about gaining a lot of profit and not caring about how it would affect the citizens of the White Town. So Law experienced firsthand just how cruel and unfair the world is, and he had a lot of hatred in his heart. Doflamingo saw himself in Law because he understood his pain, so he tried to make him one of his family. And just like how Treble reinforced the hatred in young Doflamingo's heart, Doflamingo tried to do the same for Law. But Dorothy wanted to take things further and use Law as a tool. After learning that Law ate the Opi no Mi, he wanted to raise Law to be someone who would literally die for his sake with unwavering loyalty, just like the other members of his family. He wanted to gain eternal life at the expense of Law's life, showing how obsessed with power Doflamingo is that he would be willing to sacrifice his own family members to reach his goals. But Rosinante was the opposite. He instead wanted to save Law from the hatred that was consuming him and showed him the love that he missed after losing his family. Doflamingo treated Law with conditional love, whereas Rosinante treated Law with unconditional love. Because they both betrayed Doflamingo, Dorothy then decides to kill another member of his biological family. Both Doflamingo and Rosinante were pretty much fighting over how Law should live his life. So when Law chose to live by Rosinante's philosophy, he was finally free, and this angered Doflamingo. Even though he killed Rosinante, in the end, Rosinante's worldview turned out to be the victor, because Law was finally free in choosing how he wanted to live his life, which rejects everything that Doflamingo stands for. But what's interesting is the fact that even after killing his own brother, Doflamingo never replaced Rosinante as Corazon in the family. Even in the present time, no one else succeeded Rosinante to be the next Corazon, showing that Doflamingo still loved his brother despite his betrayal. He was the last of his biological family, so killing him really did affect Doflamingo deep down because no one could replace his brother. This adds layers to Doflamingo's character, and he isn't just a pure evil villain who cares about nothing but himself. We see that he still had emotional ties to his previous broken family. Even though Rosinante thought that Doflamingo was born evil to loving parents, the truth is that he is actually misunderstood. Doflamingo is the way he is because of how badly he was treated by the world system. So Doflamingo is more than just an evil tyrant. He's a character who has experienced extreme privilege, trauma, loss, fear of powerlessness, and an obsession with power. He was no more than a product of the unfair system that the world of One Piece has been running for hundreds of years, and Doflamingo strove to try and be on top and control the system, because he fears the possibility of losing his power again and fears the thought of his family members leaving him. Thank you guys so much for watching. If you guys enjoyed this video and would like to see more One Piece analysis content, please like, comment and subscribe. I'm trying to reach 1000 subscribers by the end of the year, so I would really appreciate it if you could subscribe. And I'll see you guys in the next video.